Heyo gamers, DuckOfTheStarz here. Seemingly at a perfect time back from the dead. You guys think I've forgotten about you. I want to reassure that's not the case. I've been trying to edit the two next videos that I wanted to publish, but unfortunately, both of those have had audio issues, and so I've been having to voice over both of them. And if that wasn't bad enough, I got COVID just a couple weeks ago, which means that I can't really do much voicing over at the moment because I'm still trying to recover from this cough. So if I sound a little bit sick while making this video, it's because I am, and I figured while I'm trying to recover, why not make a smaller video? Since today, at least the recording day, is Halloween, I figured what better time than now to talk about horror as a genre. And normally I talk about games on this channel. I guess that pertains to that. I'm jumping on the bandwagon and talking about the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I haven't made a thumbnail for it yet, but I imagine it's going to be something pretty clickbaity, but I just wanted to give my honest opinion. Honestly, not just about the movie, but about both the praise and the criticisms that it's been getting. I figured because critics and fans are so divided on how to approach this film, that I should step in as both. And so I think if you've clicked on this video, you already know how bad the reviews are, at least on Rotten Tomatoes, IGN. I believe it got a 4 on IGN, and it's sitting around 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. And to start talking about that, I think it's important to note that most film critics are very harsh towards horror movies. It goes without saying that there's a lot of crap out there, and a lot of maybe what you could call filler movies, especially in the horror genre. I'm not giving critics a hard time by saying that horror movies aren't good. Horror movies have been around for a long time, and they obviously have had mixed reactions just because a lot of people don't like being scared. But it feels like every new horror movie that comes out gets bombed to oblivion. I can't think of a good movie that's come out in the past couple years other than It that has actually received semi-decent reviews from both critics and fans. And on top of this, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is a video game movie, which are notoriously not very good. I've talked about it before on this channel with Evans Media, at least in terms of the Mario movies that we've seen in the past. Video game movies as a whole don't tend to be very good. There's a reason for that, and I think some of the problems with the Five Nights at Freddy's movie really comes from the fact that it's a video game, and it's a very simple video game at that. But where I begin failing to understand critics' arguments is when they begin to talk about the story, because obviously the story is going to be a little more than just looking at cameras for 2 hours. And some of them seem to be upset by this. They say it's much too melodrama. And I couldn't agree less. I feel like in a film that revolves around a game which revolves around missing children, that having a plot about missing children is a great way to introduce new people to the greater lore of the FNAF series. I don't know how much this pertains to the actual canon, because the story was changed up quite a bit. Obviously, this movie was 8 years in development. It started out with 1 game and expanded to 9. They had to keep up with all these new games coming out while still trying to base their story off of the foundation that was laid out by the first game. I think it does show from time to time that this movie was a little dated. It seems like some of the references that they snuck in from later games really only came in because it was necessary to keep the lore more put together. I think if they had changed any, or if they had deviated any more than they had, then most fans would be upset, but that obviously isn't the case. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, the fan score is, I think, around 90%, which I don't know if I can agree with either. There are really 2 approaches to viewing this film, and one is as a film critic or a film enjoyer, and the other is as a fan of the series. And it's kind of hard to find any in-between with that. I think the goal for them to bring new people into the horror genre succeeded. It's a PG-13 film. It's not going to be very solid. It's not going to have people running out of the theater in fear. You go into it expecting a rather kid-friendly experience, and that is more or less what you get. And if you don't like that, that's fine. You obviously don't have to watch the movie, nor do you have to give your money to the creators for making such a decision. I, for one, was a little upset with the fact that it was so tame in comparison to other horror movies like, again, It. And I hope that if they do end up making a sequel, that they pander a little more towards that core audience, which, of course, is very desensitized to horror, and at least the cheap jump scares. I wish they would do more with that. But obviously that's not up to us, that's up to them to do. One thing, at least, that the fans and critics can agree on is that the actors performed very well. Obviously, a lot of these actors are professionals, and because they are professionals, they do their jobs quite well. I think you can go into the movie not knowing much about the games, or not really even caring much about the games, and at least enjoying the experience. It does get into psychological horror more than cheap jump scares, and which is funny given that it's Five Nights at Freddy's, which really is known as the king of cheap jump scare games. But you do have to go into this movie with more of a psychological horror mindset, and I, for one, am quite happy about that, actually. I think that horror these days does tend to lean a lot more towards cheap jump scares, or in the case of slashers, just as much gore as possible. And I think there is an element to building a setting, not only within the character's outside world, but inside their minds as well. I think the outside world did need a little more world building, especially around the halfway mark. I know a lot of fans have criticized how lighthearted it feels in some parts, and I can understand the sentiment there. You reach a point where you don't feel nearly as scared about the antagonists, but going off of the story, you would kind of understand that would be an inevitability. When you have spirits of deceased children, they're not going to be the antagonist when all of a sudden we have the person who killed those children. I think it's a cliche, or at least some kind of movie trope that's been around for a very long time. So I don't understand why people are so upset about that. Maybe because it's a cliche, but it's a movie. Movies are full of tropes, full of cliches. And if you don't like that, then maybe this movie isn't for you. I don't know. This movie won't be for a lot of people at the end of the day. And I think that's what I really need to segue into here. I'm not going off a script. These are just my pure thoughts on the film. I understand where critics are coming from. This isn't any kind of groundbreaking film, but it's not meant to be. It's a lot like the Mario movie that came out earlier this year. I never got to do an official review on that just because I was so busy at the time. I'd already spent that other time making a video about the other two Mario movies that have come out in the past. If you want to take a look at that, that is right here. Much like that movie, this film is pandered towards fans. And that's why the fan rating is so high, or the audience rating is so high, whereas the critic rating is so low. These people are going into the movie expecting a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Not some kind of cinematic masterpiece, but something that will almost become a meme, something that they can get all these references to, and there are a good amount of references. Going back to the original game and 2014 when that first came out, and from most people I've heard that have both perspectives, it would probably sit around a 6-7 out of 10, just because it's not anything that you're going to remember 10 years down the line for its story or for its cinematic techniques. It's going to be something you remember 10 years down the line because it's a Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and regardless of how bad it is, that's always what it's going to be remembered as. The 1990s Mario movie is a cult classic, not because it's good, but because it's so horrifically bad that it is funny. But I don't think that'll be the case here. I think it will be remembered as a decent horror film, at least a decent PG-13 horror film, and one which really brought fans of all kinds together. When I was at the theater, I was sitting around with people probably half my age and people twice my age, so it was cool to see such a diverse community coming together to enjoy something we had all been playing for years. Do I think this movie is worth seeing in theaters? That again depends on what kind of person you are. If you want to go and watch horror movies on the big screen, then I think it does fit fairly well. You know, the ambiance in general is decent. I don't understand why people are destroying the idea that it's not scary at all or it's not dark at all. It's a fairly dark movie, especially for a PG-13 horror movie. That's the thing I want to hit home. For what it is fairly good. But if you don't see yourself as an avid Five Nights at Freddy's fan, I don't say it would be worth the money, or at least wait until you can rent it on YouTube or Amazon Prime, or if you have Peacock, you can stream it there for free. The point is that this is a movie for fans. If you do not fall in that category, you probably won't find nearly as much enjoyment as someone who is a fan would. And I think it's important to recognize that this is most certainly one of those fan service films where they expect mostly people who have played the games to come in, get a bunch of laughs from all the cameos and all the references, and go home at the end of the day just feeling satisfied that one of their favorite indie games is now a film franchise. For those that didn't like it, I would be curious to hear exactly what your gripe was. You know, if it's something different than what the critics have been saying anyways. It's, when I hear people talk about it, they really just say, you know, in Gen Z slang, it was mid, you know, it wasn't, and yeah, it was nothing to write home about. I wouldn't put it up for any awards, other than maybe for the actors. The actors, again, did a great job in their roles. I am seeing quite a bit of traffic online with this already, which is why I really wanted to make a video about it. Obviously, I want to put my voice out there among everyone else who's probably giving their own opinions, and you're gonna hear lots of mixed reviews. A lot of companies like IGN are saying it's not too great. A lot of fans are saying it's fantastic. I don't think it's particularly either, but I think it has the potential from here to branch off into something much better than what people were expecting. And by the looks of it, they are making a decent amount of money from this movie. They already have made back the production budget. And with horror movies, that tends to be fairly small. I think it was around 20 million. I think they've made around 70 million at this point, which is impressive. So I would not be shocked to hear in the future that there are more Five Nights at Freddy's movies, or at least they're going to branch off and work with other indie horror games. I think this movie is going to be a great gateway to bring other lesser known horror games onto the big screen, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Even if at the end of the day, you know, 1 in 5 of those movies turns out to be absolutely phenomenal, that's something I'm willing to take, because I think that games in general have this issue where people see them as not so much unprofessional, but obviously gaming has had a lot of issues with media in the past. Thinking about the horror genre specifically, I can think of Doom and Slender Man. Neither of those games have been, you know, or in comparison to those two movies, this movie is phenomenal. I think it's done a great job taking what was at the time a small game and turning it into a feature-length film. Something that's not been done particularly well in the horror genre. And I really could rant on for 20-30 minutes about this. I'm not going to spend too much time because the hype will be dying down here, so I don't want to make a 30-minute long review unless that's what you guys want. But I'd rather spend that time working on my bigger projects. I know you Hearts of Iron subscribers and fans of mine, that you guys want your newest big video. I promise you that's coming out. It's just 20 hours of footage that I now have to dub over because my audio wasn't working correctly. And for those of you who are here for more of my Steam Link and Stadia Luna hardware, software, don't want to exactly call them reviews, maybe, yeah, we'll go with reviews. But for those of you who are in for that kind of content, I promise you I have more, game collecting videos on the way. Again, it's been an audio issue, and in recent weeks it's been a health issue too. But I want you guys to know that you're not forgotten about. As difficult as it is to do all these videos as a college student too, I appreciate all you guys' support. In the past 2 months where I haven't uploaded anything, I've still been gaining lots of views, subscribers, and I am forever grateful for that. When I feel like I have nothing else in me, seeing that you guys are still being so supportive is what really pushes me to make these next videos. And I have plenty of ideas, just very little energy to push them out with. Editing is a pain in the ass. But I'm getting the hang of it, and hopefully I will have at least somewhat of a streamlined schedule in the future. If you guys want to hear more of an in-depth talk about this film, then I would be more than happy to talk more about it. Just let me know down in the comments. If you liked the movie, let me know why you liked it. Other than the fact that you're just a fan of the film, I would love to see some dialogue, just about how this film has changed gaming, or maybe hasn't changed cinema. But I just wanted to get my voice out there, because for one thing, I haven't talked in a very long time on this channel, and I would like to get back into a proper schedule. And on top of that, I really just feel like this film has been quite divisive, and want to tell people that it's okay not to like it. It's okay to like it. It's okay to love it. It's okay if it's your favorite movie in the world. But for those who haven't seen it yet and are on the fence about it, maybe take that leap of faith, but don't expect an Oscar-winning movie or anything. It's fine, and it's good fun. I'm gonna stop rambling. If you guys like this video and you want to see more content like this, or you want to see more content like the content I already have out, please consider liking this video, subscribing to my channel if you're not already in that group. If you want to talk more about the film directly with me, I do have a Discord server, and I will put that right here, probably more right here in the description. So with that being said, I'm sorry it's been so long, and I promise more content is on the way as soon as possible. And I'll see you guys in the next one.